Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Evil Within Akumu difficulty video walkthrough. This is Chapter 3, Claws of the Horde Part 1. Right then, this is still an upgrade run at this point, and this level is tough. That is pretty much all you need to know. You'll notice that Debussy is on the beginning of the videos, a nice tune called Clair de Lune, which is French for moonlight. Whenever you hear that in this game, it's a good thing. And not just because it's a piece of exquisite music, but it means there's a save point. And the save points on this game work just like they did in Resident Evil 4. If you have the patience to go back to them, you can make your own checkpoints. And the checkpoints on this difficulty are kind of strange, so it is worth doing. For the purposes of this guide, I've tried not to whore it as much as I would have, say, if you weren't watching. But then again, I would have been doing things much more differently if I wasn't recording it for an audience, because that's just the nature of the beast. You know, my gameplay is conscious of other people, rather than myself, which, you know, makes it sound a lot more altruistic than it is, even though I'm hoping it helps people, but it's just, it is what it is. But anyhow, the saving on this game, as much as you can exploit it and it's useful in that parameter, it's kind of stupid too. You go through a mirror into an asylum. It's an asylum we're going to visit a lot. It's an asylum you're barely going to see, because I'm going to trim those parts out. Because every time we go there, see that? See how small that fucking blue bit was? Oh my god, like, I couldn't do that shit when it was a big bar back on Survivor, let alone when it's that small. And it looks like a test of reflexes, but it's not, because if you do when it's bang on, you'll miss. Trust me, guys, my reflexes are just fine. You know, I might be getting older, but they don't seem to be slowing, even though scientifically they probably are. But it takes you to an asylum anyhow. Excuse me. That is an axe, very important. One thing to note with the checkpoints here, folks. You will get checkpoints, but you will not be respawned where the checkpoints were. And it's going to make this video kind of weird. And there's going to be a couple of transitions I'm going to explain, because for some reason, whenever I died at the north end of this village, it kept respawning me in the barn. I don't know why. And I got a checkpoint in the north edge, so there's going to be a couple of moments where it jumps, but I'll explain it. At this point, you have no threat of death aside from traps, so use it to get as much stuff as you can. We're going to be moving towards the doctor. The doctor's going to trigger a cutscene, and then enemies are going to turn up, and it's back to being violent. But saving. You go into the asylum, you have to go to the desk. Sometimes the nurse will give you some lip, and she won't let you save until you do various bullshit, but it's all very self-explanatory. Go to the cells, go to the meat locker, you know, it's that kind of stuff. Then you go, you save, and then you have to leave, watch the cutscene, and then exit the room. So the saving supersedes checkpoints, so if you get a checkpoint and then you save, you're going to respawn in the room and have to leave it every single time. And you might be thinking that sounds really petty to be frustrated by having to leave and do something that takes, you know, perhaps 20 to 25 seconds every time you do it, maybe a little less. Well, when you get grabbed on this game, or you get touched on this game, or someone throws a rock at you, or any of the bullshit that happens, like, you see that? That is not Ruvik. Ruvik's on this part in a cinematic, but that isn't him. Ruvik is... Where are you, Ruvik? Does he even show up on this part?
There are too many to shoot our way
No.
through.
But you know, do you see what's happening here? The guy you see right now doesn't turn up until Chapter 11 on Survivor. He's in Chapter 3 now, because this is the hardest difficulty. The thing to know about that enemy is before he sees you, he is most vulnerable. When he sees you, he does a scream. Do not attack him during the scream. If you do, you'll waste ammo, because he seems to just have a hyper armor and bullshit. Something worth noting as well, there should be two enemies coming up this staircase. They killed me, like everything does in this game, but when I respawned in, they weren't there. So if you're wondering where those two guys are, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, folks. It just doesn't work that way for some reason, and one of the things you need to know about this entire area is the more people you kill, the better. I would love to say you can stealth through it, saving ammo, but you kind of can't unless you're super good at stabbing in the back of the head, and I'm not. So this is me waiting for people to turn up, and I believe only one of them does.
Hey, over here. That's right.
Oh, in fact, you're going to see an edit here, guys, after the cutscene. So do you notice how there's no fire person? I died. After him, there's a guy with a gun. The guy with the gun shot me. It ended rather swiftly. When I respawned in, neither of them turned up. I don't know why. I can't tell you. It just is what it is. I think later on they do, and I have to kill them. But there should be 2 enemies there. So, on your playthrough, if you don't die, hopefully you'll be able to sort them out. But that right there is a good technique of getting past the sensors without triggering them or defusing them. It's just essentially tapping crouch, stand, crouch, stand, crouch, stand. Here is Claire de Lune and the save point. You'll notice the mirror's not active unless you pick up what's in the room. This seems to be one of the stipulations of scripting to trigger it to crack. There you go. But back on topic, the Ruvik imposter, once he screams, he lets out what is kind of the hands of the Shrieker, and it's this blood trail of these gripping hands that is very fast, and it tracks you almost everywhere. The only place it can't track you, I've found, is on ladders. So if you know of a ladder, go and stand on it. Do not stand too close to the ground though, and do not go up the top of it, because it'll just come up the top and get you. Whenever the blood stops and it lasts forever, he's vulnerable again, and he is vulnerable during it, but you'll probably die in the animation priority. So the best way to kill that kind of creature is to catch it by surprise. Get very... Oh, there's a bad guy in here. I'm going to try and burn it before it gets up, but this might not work. Oh, there you go. See that? Look at the range. Why is not every match as good as that? The detection on that, it needs work. It really needed working on. It's nowhere near as good as it needs to be. And it's such a shame, because that mechanic could be really good and really empowering if it worked like that every time. And it just doesn't. And it makes me really sad. There's a jump scare coming. There you go. Happens every time. And he's gonna drop some green goo if you're interested in upgrading, which you might want to pick up. But the imposter guy. Best case scenario, you shoot him in the torso region with the shotgun and he falls over, then you quickly drop a match on him. Worst case scenario, or most case scenario, you shoot him with a shotgun and he doesn't fall over for some reason. It's just how it works. Later on when you get a magnum, 1 magnum round will kill him on the hardest difficulty without upgrades. So it's such a good way of getting rid of them. This is the barn where you're going to see me respawn a lot in. And you can hear at my left that there's some kind of crazy jangling happening. Do you remember the guy who pinned us to the ceiling at the beginning of the game? Well, he's back, and he's chained up in this barn. He's called a Sadist, and he has a chainsaw. To get out of this village, we need a chainsaw, so we're going to have to kill him. I do not know the quickest way to kill him, and apparently making noise has just lured these 2 zombie guys in here, so we're going to have to deal with them. I know the crossbow is really good against him. Obviously the shotgun's really good against him, but he doesn't work like the zombie people do in Resident Evil 4, and it's one of the reasons why I don't want people comparing this to RE4, because it's not. It's nowhere near as good as that game. And it's a fantastic game, don't let me, sway you against this title, but RE4 is sublime in the way it works. And it does have moments, and they are rare, but they happen, where it is kind of bullshit, a little bit like this, but nowhere near as much as this, because the systems work better. A great example is the chainsaw guys. When a chainsaw guy gets close to you on that game, if you put a shotgun shell in his face, he will fall down. That does not work on this game. You put a shotgun shell in his face, that means you are close enough for him to then chop yours off. Every single time, guys. He seems almost unstunnable. The only way to get a guaranteed stun is when you meet his damage threshold and he goes down on his knees. But that doesn't make good gameplay. So what it means is you're going to have to get good at kiting him and getting those quick shots off, and not even the chainsaw guy in Mercenaries who had the double-sided one who never stopped running, not even that dude's as fast as this guy. This dude can swing an insane amount. It's kind of crazy. I don't understand why he's so fast and so damaging and so versatile. It's that strange thing of they've given him every quality. I don't see the negatives with this enemy at all. And you only fight 2 of them in the entire game, which just goes to show how confident the game is on its enemies and on its environments, because it doesn't feel the need to whore it. And I think that's one of the greatest qualities. There are enemies on this game you only fight once, and I think that's a really interesting choice. And when you think about it, aside from those one-off encounters, some of the enemies, you know, there's only really 2 different types. There are the standard guys, and then there are the Ruvik clones, because you barely see those invisible guys. We will see them later on, but you barely see those. And do they class the fat guys as different ones? I don't really know. Something I have noticed with playing is the enemies' outfits are random. So when you restart, you'll probably be fighting different looking fellas, which it kind of gives the impression that there's more enemies than there is, but sometimes it can be like a breath of fresh air that you'd really need. A good example is the fat guys. For some reason, the fat guys can turn up as like cardinals. They're wearing these black, crazy, you know, habits. What is it called? A cassock that a priest wears. And they look ridiculous. It's so funny. And sometimes it's just what you need. And I should really divulge that the fat enemies have more life, so you want to burn them as quick as possible. Another thing I learned while playing this section, this door here, and all doors I assume, if the enemies want to get through it, they can cut their way through. I don't know why they do that. Some doors they'll push open, that door for some reason the woman stabs through it, so I don't know if it's meant to work that way. It very well could be. But at this point, this is me making sure I've picked up everything, taking it slow. It's not going to be everyone's taste, but you have to, guys. You have to try and make everything count. And one mistake, and it goes back as if I've never done what I've just done. You know, it's really that harsh. But bear traps cannot be disarmed unless you are crouching, it seems. Ooh. Chests that have traps in them. Hold A until it makes that noise, and then let go. Or, if you don't have sound, which I played some of this without, as soon as it opens and it starts forcing open, stop. If you don't do it right, you're dead. One of the good things about the checkpoint here being kind of shit is that for some reason it seems to repopulate the axe a little bit. And that's a good thing, because if you haven't noticed, I've already seen another axe throughout my travels. Axes are really important. There's a checkpoint. That means we've banked all of what we've just done. That is good news. Here comes a guy with an axe. I don't want to waste my axe on him, so I'm going to try and... Oh no, I am. Shit. Wow, that's wasteful. But you see, I can say that now because I'm a better player and I know how to handle things a little bit better, but at the time, you know, I would rather use the axe than it just seems so dumb, doesn't it? I just got a checkpoint. What was I thinking? That axe is too vulnerable. Too useful, sorry. That's the wrong word. Anyhow, the Ruvik clone who's pacing the street, hit him with an axe, he'll die. It's beautiful. Everything should die from the axes, but it doesn't work that way. Sadist will not die from an axe. Crazy scaffold on its arm, draggy, awful monster that turns up in Chapter 10 will not die from a smack from the axe. Those are 2 I know to be true. Keeper will die. Doesn't make any sense. Keeper dies, crazy malformed monsters don't. Baffling, really. But like, Keeper dies, Sadist doesn't. Which means the Sadist has more life than the Keeper. Which brings me to a pretty interesting point, actually. I kind of wish I had a guide for this, like an official guide, a primer guide, or a piggyback. I don't know why somebody broke that window, but someone's about to come and see me watch this bullshit. There is no way they could have known I was coming. Yet. Where is he? I'm sure he does. Yeah, you can hear him. He's coming down the stairs. Yeah, here he comes. And I don't know why the window broke. It does this really strange thing where... It must be scripted. Doors will shut by themselves. So if you have a nervous disposition and you don't like squeaky doors in your horror games, this game's going to shut you up because all the fucking doors do it. But the weapon he's going to give us is instant kill. See what I mean, though? That right then is a good example of when I can't see his head, I fuck up a throw, and I nearly pay the ultimate price because this game is not designed well enough. Just imagine how much easier it would be if that 2 inches with the black banding at the top wasn't there. And QWERTY, one of my subscribers, has asked me to mention that the PC version can get rid of the letterboxing and it can also unlock the frame rate. But I want to preface this by saying that everybody who's mentioned this to me before him says the game runs like utter shit when you do that. So, as much as I'd love to recommend it for people, I kind of don't, because this version chugs at times, and the frame rate is really frustrating, especially because it always seems to chug in the moments where you need it to be smooth. But from what I've seen on the next-gen consoles, it runs kind of fine. And I'm actually really looking forward to playing, because I'm watching Darkside Phil while I play. I'm watching a lot of things, to be honest, folks. I need to keep my sanity, because it's really rough. Like, I did all of Season 9 of American Dad. I did all of Big Benedict's most recent playthrough of God of War before he deleted it and started it again, which... oh, Bick. I watched... What have I been watching? I've been watching all of Gamefront's coverage of this game up to this point. They've only done 6 videos. I watched DSP play all of it up to where he is, which I believe is like, he's on chapter 9, I think he's on. I've been watching a ton of it, but getting back to point, the mission on chapter 7 called The Keeper, where you're being gassed, on the current version that I'm playing, you do not see much gas. The ambient effects just aren't there, because the game, you know, it's a beautiful looking game, but there are textures and there are parts of it that are ugly, because they have to be toned down to make the game run. You know, what people don't seem to realise is these consoles that I'm playing on the last gen are old. They're really fucking old. And the fact that this game can exist on them is a testament to the machines and to the devs for being able to make it palpable to run and not being completely atrocious. And you see a lot of people saying, I hate this fucking insult, and it's been an old one for a while. It looks like a PS2 game. I'm sorry guys, but have you played a fucking PS2 game? PS2 is one of my all-time favourite games, and those games looked amazing at the time. What am I saying? All-time favourite consoles, sorry. And those games at the time looked amazing. They don't anymore. Go back and look at them. Your brain makes you think they looked okay. They don't. It's the same with any old console. You have this selective memory and this mental up-resing of every game you've ever played. I look back on Ocarina of Time, and I somehow think that Link wasn't just a bunch of triangles and a pointy nose, when he's just a bunch of triangles in that game. That's all he is. He's this big Lego-esque fucking crazy thing. But my memory of him has smoothened him out with perhaps the image of him on the GameCube Smash Brothers game, and for some reason it's warped my perspective and my memories, so that now I look at it back on with like halcyon vision. It's just the same with everything else. If you think this looks like a PS2 game, go back and play a fucking PS2 game, because you will swiftly understand you are wrong, and this game is beautiful, even at its most ugly. And on the next gen and on PC, it probably looks astounding. But thank you very much for watching. I will see you in part 2, where shit gets a lot more interesting and a whole lot more dangerous. You take care now.